If you think what happens in the bedroom is what makes a man obsessed with you, think again. It's not the act, it's the build-up. It's what you do before, during, and especially after that makes him lie awake at night replaying every second. Because when a woman knows how to touch, not just his body but his mind, his senses and his heart, he never gets over her, ever. Real seduction doesn't begin in the bedroom. It begins with energy, presence, and connection that's built throughout the day. The moment you lock eyes across the room and hold that gaze for just a second longer than usual, you've already started the foreplay. The way you casually brush against his arm when you're laughing at a joke, or the way you tease him when you notice he's paying a little too much attention. Those are the early signals that set everything in motion. Most people think foreplay starts when the lights go off and the clothes come off, but that's a narrow and limited view. What truly makes a moment unforgettable is how it's framed before it even begins. When a man feels like he's been slowly led into a connection, when he's been mentally and emotionally warmed up, everything physical becomes 10 times more intense. Think about it. When you're sending him subtle signs throughout the day, little flirtations that aren't overly obvious but laced with meaning, you're building tension without even touching him. You might be talking about completely unrelated things, work, friends, weekend plans, but the way you lean in just a little closer when you speak, or the moment you lock eyes and hold that silence for half a second too long, those are the moments that spark curiosity and longing. He starts to feel like he's the only one in the room, like you're speaking just to him, like your world has narrowed down to this one moment of shared energy. That's not an accident. That's intentional foreplay, the kind that lives in his head long before anything physical happens. Men remember how a woman makes them feel when she walks into a room. They remember the way she glances at them, like she knows something they don't, like there's a secret that only she can reveal. Emotional foreplay is all about creating that feeling of magnetism, that sense that something electric is happening between you, and it's building quietly under the surface. You can be across the dinner table from him or sitting next to him in the car and still be turning him on without saying a word. It's the tone of your voice, the way you smile after he says something clever, the slight pause before you reply. All of that builds intimacy without laying a single hand on him. When you lead with emotional connection, everything else becomes more meaningful. The man starts to crave more than just your body. He starts to crave your attention, your approval, your presence. He's not just physically attracted, he's mentally invested, and once he's mentally hooked, you become the woman he can't stop thinking about. Most women are waiting for a moment to flip the switch into foreplay, but the most powerful women are already building the tension hours before the night even begins. That's what makes you unforgettable. Not the act itself, but the way you make him feel before it even starts. Anticipation is the secret ingredient most people overlook, and yet it's the one thing that can turn an ordinary experience into something unforgettable. When you rush into physical intimacy, it's like skipping the trailer and jumping straight into the movie. You miss the build-up that makes the story matter. But when you understand how to use delay, how to stretch the moments just before something happens, you create a tension that lingers in the mind and body. Men are wired to chase, to want, to wonder. When you give him everything too soon or too easily, there's no room for his imagination to do the work. But when you slow things down, when you give him just enough to crave more, he becomes completely absorbed in you. It's in the pause before the kiss, the slow slide of your hand across his arm, the moment your lips hover near his but don't quite touch. That space, that in-between moment, drives him wild. His mind starts racing. He wonders what's next. He's pulled into the experience not just physically, but emotionally. And that's where the real magic lives. The more you tease his expectations, the more unforgettable you become. It's not about withholding affection or playing games. It's about being intentional with your energy. It's letting your actions say, I know what you want, and I'm enjoying the moment too much to rush through it. When you master anticipation, you make every movement count. A look becomes a promise. A soft breath near his ear can be more powerful than the act itself. He starts to feel like he's on the edge of something incredible, and every time you hold back just a little longer, it fuels the fire. Men don't remember the quick, easy encounters. They remember the ones that built up slowly, the ones that had tension, chemistry, and a sense of unfolding. They remember the woman who made them feel like time slowed down just being near her. Your power lies in your patience. You can build an entire world of desire without ever rushing a single moment. When he starts leaning in and you take a breath instead of closing the distance, when you touch his hand and let your fingers linger just a bit longer, you're showing him that you're in control of the moment. And that kind of control, that confidence, is unforgettable. He feels chosen, not just wanted. And that's a feeling he doesn't forget. When he walks away, he's not just thinking about what happened. He's remembering how you made him feel, like every second mattered. That's what sets you apart. Not how far things went, but how deeply you made him feel every step along the way. Every man is different, and the moment you treat him like he's just another guy, the connection starts to lose its fire. What separates the unforgettable woman from the rest is her attention to the details that are unique to him. It's in the way she listens, not just to what he says out loud, but to what he doesn't. It's in the way she notices the things that light him up, the subjects that make his eyes sparkle, the moments that soften his voice. She takes mental notes and uses that information to make him feel seen in a way no one else ever has. That level of personal attention is magnetic. It tells him he's not just with a woman who knows how to touch his body, but one who understands his mind. This isn't about being perfect or performing, it's about being present enough to learn what makes him feel desired on a level deeper than physical. Maybe he likes it when you lean into his chest while you talk. Maybe he's the type who melts when you run your hand through his hair or whisper in his ear. Maybe it's the way you tell him you believe in him when he's second-guessing himself. When you discover the things that uniquely affect him, emotionally and physically, and you start incorporating those into every intimate moment, you become the one he compares everyone else to. Why? Because you're not just connecting with his body, you're connecting with his identity. Men crave that kind of personalized attention, even if they never say it out loud. They want to feel like you understand what makes them feel confident, strong, wanted. They want to feel that you're not just going through the motions, but that you're tuned in to them specifically. A woman who pays that kind of attention doesn't need to be flashy or bold. Her power lies in the quiet ways she makes a man feel like he matters. And once a man feels that level of connection, physical intimacy becomes more than just a moment. It becomes an emotional imprint. When you tailor your touch, your words, your energy to what you've learned about him, you stop being replaceable. Most women give generic affection. They kiss like they kissed the last guy. They touch like they've memorized a script. But the woman he can't forget is the one who touches him like she knows exactly where he responds, who speaks like she's heard what he's been too afraid to say. She's not guessing, she's been observing. And that difference is everything. When you make him feel like no one has understood him the way you do, he doesn't just enjoy being with you, he begins to need you. He starts replaying those moments in his head, comparing every new experience to the way it felt with you. because with you it wasn't just about chemistry, it was about connection. Confidence during intimacy is one of the most powerful forms of attraction, and yet it's the one thing so many overlook. It's not about having the perfect body or knowing every move. It's about owning who you are in the moment and being unapologetically present. When a woman shows up with that kind of confidence, she sends a message that she's not performing for approval. She's enjoying the experience just as much. That presence is intoxicating. It draws a man in because he's not just participating in something physical. He's witnessing someone fully connected to her own desire. And that kind of self-assuredness lingers far beyond the moment itself. There's a noticeable difference between someone going through the motions and someone who's fully engaged. A woman who's confident doesn't second guess every move or look for constant reassurance. She lets herself be seen, not just physically, but emotionally. She allows herself to be expressive without apology. She doesn't shrink back when things become intense. She leans in. That boldness, that ability to say, "This is what I want, and I'm not afraid to feel it," makes her unforgettable. Confidence isn't about being loud, it's about being certain. Certain in her body, certain in her touch, certain that she belongs right there, not because she was chosen, but because she chose herself first. Men are deeply affected by this kind of energy. It's not something they can easily explain, but they feel it. A woman who walks into the room like she knows her worth, who touches him like she trusts herself, who kisses like she's lost in the moment, she becomes a memory he can't shake. That's because confidence is rare. So many people seek validation instead of giving it to themselves first. But when you know your value, when you carry yourself with quiet certainty, you stop chasing love and start attracting desire on a whole different level. The truth is, a man will forget physical details over time, but he'll never forget how a woman made him feel about himself. And nothing makes him feel more drawn in than someone who doesn't hold back. When he sees that you're comfortable in your own skin, when he sees that you're not seeking permission to express your pleasure, it frees him up to do the same. It creates an emotional and physical environment where both people feel safe to let go, to explore, to connect deeply. And that's what marks you in his mind long after the moment has passed. You weren't afraid to feel. You weren't afraid to be seen. You weren't trying to impress. You were being real. That kind of confidence stays with a man. It echoes in his thoughts, shows up in his memories, and redefines what intimacy means to him, because for the first time it wasn't about performance, it was about presence. And presence is unforgettable. When it comes to creating a lasting impression during intimacy, most people focus only on the body. They rely on physical moves and techniques, thinking that touch alone is what keeps someone coming back. But what really sets a woman apart, what makes her impossible to forget, is when she speaks to every one of his senses. Men are wired for sensory input, and while touch and sight are the obvious ones, it's the less obvious layers, sound, scent, taste, energy, that create a deep emotional imprint he won't shake. The women men remember aren't always the ones who did the most physically, but the ones who awakened every part of them in subtle, unforgettable ways. The voice, for example, is one of the most underrated tools of seduction. It's not about having a certain pitch or volume. It's about the intention behind your words and the confidence in your tone. When you speak to a man during foreplay with slow, deliberate whispers or soft, playful phrases, you're not just filling space, you're guiding his attention. A well-timed whisper, a few words spoken close to his ear, can send a shiver through his entire body. It tells him that you're present, that you're enjoying every second, and that he's the only one in your world right now. That kind of focus is magnetic. He starts associating your voice with safety, desire, and excitement all at once. It becomes a trigger for memory, something he'll hear in his mind long after the moment is over. Then the scent. One of the most primal triggers of memory we have, a certain perfume, the natural fragrance of your skin, or even the scent of your shampoo can lodge itself into a man's memory without him even realizing it. When a moment is emotionally charged and layered with a distinct smell, the two become inseparable. Every time he catches that scent again, it'll take him right back to you. That's how you make your presence linger. Even when you're not around, you become part of his environment, part of his sensory world, without having to say a word. Touch, of course, is a given, but even here, it's not about what you do, it's about how you do it. A slow, intentional touch communicates more than any grand gesture. It says you're not rushing, you're soaking in the experience. You're in tune with his responses. That kind of awareness builds an emotional intimacy he doesn't expect. When your hands speak more than your words, when they explore with curiosity rather than routine, you turn the physical into something emotional. He feels understood, not just touched. That's a rare feeling, and it's one he'll chase again and again. Even the way you look at him matters. Eye contact, especially during moments of vulnerability, creates a feeling of connection that no technique can replace. When you hold his gaze without flinching, when you let him see how much you're enjoying the experience, it makes him feel powerful and exposed at the same time. That blend of strength and softness is intoxicating. Most people look away when things get intense, but when you stay locked in, when you let your eyes say what your mouth doesn't, it creates a sense of trust and depth that very few experiences offer. All of this works together. It's not about being overly sexual or doing something wild, it's about being aware. When you use your voice, your eyes, your scent, your energy and your presence to connect with all his senses, you stop being someone he simply slept with. You become an experience he carries with him, something he can't replicate, something that lives in the background of his thoughts, reminding him of how alive, wanted and connected he felt in your presence. That's the kind of intimacy that changes the way he looks at every woman after you. Because once someone has spoken to all his senses, everything else starts to feel just a little bit less. What happens after foreplay and intimacy often carries more weight than the act itself. It's in the moments that follow, the quiet, subtle ones, where emotional bonds are either deepened or quietly undone. Most people think once the physical moment ends, the connection pauses, but that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, the afterplay is where the real impact is made. It's where a man starts to realize this wasn't just about chemistry, it was about something deeper. It's where he begins to associate you not just with excitement, but with comfort, warmth, and emotional safety. And that's what makes someone unforgettable, not the peak of the moment, but the softness that follows. Afterplay isn't just cuddling or lying next to each other, it's energy. It's how you make him feel in the silence. It's the way you run your fingers down his chest slowly, or the way your hand finds his without needing to say anything. It's the gentle touch on his arm while he's catching his breath, or the playful teasing that makes him smile even when everything is calm. These moments feel small, but they carry emotional weight. They communicate things words never could. They say, "You're still seen, you're still wanted, you're still safe here." That is what makes a man feel more than just satisfied. It makes him feel emotionally attached. A lot of women underestimate the power of emotional afterplay because they think men are wired to disconnect right after sex. But the truth is, men crave emotional connection too. They're just not always encouraged to express it. when you're the kind of woman who makes space for that softness afterward, who doesn't rush to roll over or move on, but stays there in the stillness with him, you're giving him something he rarely gets. Permission to feel without pressure. You're saying it's okay for the moment to slow down, for vulnerability to settle in, for emotion to rise up in the quiet. That experience leaves a mark. He may not articulate it in words, but he feels it, and he will miss it when it's gone. Even something as simple as holding his face and looking into his eyes without saying anything creates a connection that runs deeper than any touch. You're telling him he's more than just someone you shared a physical moment with. You're telling him he mattered. And that's something most people don't give each other these days. In a world where so many encounters are rushed, forgettable, or emotionally distant, being the one who stays in the moment afterward makes you rare. It shows maturity, it shows confidence, it shows emotional intelligence. And more than anything, it makes a man associate you with something bigger than desire. It makes him associate you with connection, trust, and emotional grounding. He'll replay those moments not because of what happened physically, but because of how safe and seen he felt afterward. The softness of your touch, the sound of your laugh while lying there, the warmth of your body still close to his. It all weaves together to create an emotional memory he can't escape. You become his safe place. You become the one who didn't just turn him on. You slowed down with him. You held space for him. You stayed present. And in a world full of people who rush away the moment it's over, being the one who stays makes you unforgettable. It makes you the experience he compares everything else to, even if he can't explain why. Because emotional afterplay isn't just the end of something, it's the beginning of attachment. And once you tap into that, you're no longer just a memory. You're a feeling he never wants to lose. The truth is, unforgettable intimacy isn't about doing more. It's about doing it with presence, awareness, and intention. When you understand that foreplay begins long before any touch, when you build anticipation instead of rushing to the peak, when you pay attention to what makes him feel uniquely seen, when you show up with confidence and own every moment without apology, when you engage all of his senses instead of just his body, and when you stay emotionally present even after the moment ends, that's when you become unforgettable. Not because of what you did, but because of how you made him feel. Because you didn't just connect with his body, you connected with his soul. And no matter where he goes or who he meets after, a man never forgets the woman who made him feel like that.